morning, Glory America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Greetings, everyone across the United States. I'm Hugh Hewitt. Welcome to the second hour of this morning's program. I begin with Lieutenant General David Deptula. He's the Dean of the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies, of course, retired from the United States Air Force. General, welcome. Always good to talk to you.
Hey, good morning, Hugh. How are you?
I'm good, but I got a big question for you. Way out of the box question. I've been talking with Newt Gingrich this morning about his new book on China. Just went up and saw Dr. Kissinger a couple weeks ago. I sat down and listened to China expert after China expert since becoming president of the Nixon Foundation, trying to get smart about this. And their assassin mace weapons against all of our deterrent military seem to me to be pretty sophisticated and advanced. Does our military have what it takes for a neo-Cold War or Cold War 2.0 with the People's Republic of China?
Well, look, it's a complex question, but let me address it in this manner. China is transforming from a regional power to one with far more global ambitions. There's a reason why they're investing in the kinds of systems that you mentioned, like aircraft carriers, and they're building stealth fighters and bombers. We need to be realistic about the capabilities and the capacity that is required to shape and deter aggressive moves in this region. And what I would tell you, Hugh, is that our military currently is presently too small to meet the demands that are outlined in the most recent national security strategy, and we've got a choice. We can either properly resource our military to support the national security strategy of global engagement, or we can change the strategy to one of lesser global engagement. So it's a complex issue, but the bottom line is we have to meet and develop the kinds of capabilities that will deter China from implementing some of its more advanced techniques.
Okay, so imagine President Trump calls you up and says, Deptula, I heard you on Hewitt's show. I'm going to plus up the defense budget by $100 billion. I'm going to make sure it's spent on particular weapon systems. What should he buy, General?
He should buy, well, the first thing, there are a variety of different things. Each of the services have their own requirements. But I think you know what I'm about to say, and that's that the United States Air Force is operating a geriatric force of aircraft. We're still operating B-52s that were built in the Eisenhower administration. We're flying F-15s that basically had their first flight in 1972. Look, I'm the only person in Air Force history who was fully combat mission qualified in the F-15 in every rank from lieutenant to lieutenant general. But its first flight was in 1972. How many auto manufacturers are rebuilding new 1972 models and putting them back on the road today? So what we need to be building are advanced aircraft that no one else in the world has, fifth generation and beyond aircraft, increasing the buy of F-35s, increasing the planned buy of the new advanced B-21 penetrating bomber. So we've got to modernize our force, but additionally to modernizing it, we've got to increase the capacity to replace this ever-aging Air Force that we have that every one of the services depends on.
Let me talk specifically about the B-21 with you, General, because I'm pretty adept for civilian, but I'm still civilian. And I really don't know how the trade-offs are made, but it seems to me, sitting in a studio, reading as much as I can, that given China's investments in cyber offensive weapons and in hypersonics, that the B-21 has replaced the Trident and soon to be the Columbia as the most important part of our triad. Am I right?
Well, there's a good reason why we have a triad, Hugh, and it would be dangerous, if I may be so presumptuous, to suggest that one leg of that triad, which for your audience, we have submarine-launched ballistic missiles, land-based ballistic missiles, and then long-range bombers. Each one of those legs provides a degree of deterrence that combined have assured no nuclear weapons have been used since 1945. And so we want to keep all of them, but I go back to the fact that, we're flying Eisenhower Air B-52s, even the B-2, the world's only stealth bomber, of which we only have 20, is now over 30 years old.
So the marginal acquisition question is: I've got $100 billion. I can buy the Columbia class boomer nuclear submarine. I can buy B-21s. David Deptula, what do I buy?
You buy B-21s, and then you make the case that if the nation also needs to buy Columbia-class submarines as well.
Thank you for the answer. Now let's talk about how many B-21s you need to effectively deter a rising. It's actually a risen China. It's not a rising power. It's
Correct.
a risen power.
Right.
How many do you need to deter them from any conflict short of nuclear war? Because carriers are great, except when they decide to launch a complete cloud of hypersonic missiles at our carrier float groups, and then they're no good.
Yeah.
Up until that point. So how do you deter that?
Okay, well, you asked the question, how many to build? A minimum of 180, and here's why. The way the Air Force assures that it can be present around the world during peacetime to shape and secure peace in the different regions is through this structure called Aerospace Expeditionary Forces. To maintain an adequate rotational base, we need 10 of them. You need a minimum of one squadron of B-21s per Air Expeditionary Force. That's 12. 12 times 10 is 120. Then you're going to need additional aircraft for training, test, attrition reserve, backup aircraft inventory. That's another 60. 60 and 120 is 180. That's the design force that's required to meet the needs of the national security strategy. Now, whether we get there or not is a decision that has to be made by the Congress along with the administration. But
now, where do we build those, General? Which states are involved, and how much is the price tag for 180?
I'd have to get back to you on those details, Hugh. I don't have them off the top of my head. They're not inexpensive airplanes. However, they're extraordinarily valuable and cost-effective given what they do. What other system do we have that can be anywhere in the world in less than 24 hours and deliver multiple weapons on multiple targets simultaneously?
Well, to me, it makes sense because you've got, and my friends in the Navy will call and make a case for the Columbia class, and I understand that, and I'm looking forward to it. I'm just trying to give a civilian audience a sense of scale of expenditure because we spend so much money. I actually don't think 180 of anything is going to cost anything that makes the American people say no, but they need the number.
Well, the design unit cost is less than $500 million a copy.
What?
That sounds like a lot of money.
No, it doesn't.
Well, let's take a look at what, a 747-800 cost. And that's not stealthy. That's not penetrating. That doesn't carry modern weapon systems. It doesn't carry modern advanced sensors. And you're looking at about the same unit cost.
So $90 billion, let's just say $100 billion, secures the United States from a preemptive strike on every one of its carriers, which makes them potent weapons everywhere in the world.
That's correct. And, I don't want to get into the healthcare for everyone argument, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper than that.
Oh, my gosh. And just tell me, I do not understand why we're not doing this. Why in the world are we not doing this? This is not a hard problem when everything rides on deterrence.
Well, the Air Force is committed to, and what they've said publicly is to building a minimum of 100. Once again, the challenge that each one of the services have is they have a set of requirements that are enormous given the new national security strategy. But they have limited budgets that have been arbitrarily limited for no reason that don't allow us to meet the needs of that national security strategy. So that's why I go back and say we either resource the strategy or you lessen the demands that you have in the strategy. So they've got to balance the available monies across a spectrum of mission areas. This is why, look, I'm a fan of the Columbia class, all right? It's part of the modernization that has to occur. We can't abandon any leg of our triad because there's nothing more important than nuclear deterrence. And both the Columbia class and the B-21 are key to that.
But you're being clear, and I love it because we do have to get clear based upon the growing threat. General David Deptula from the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies, retired United States Air Force Lieutenant General, thank you. I love clarity, I love specificity, and I love numbers. And I have them, and I appreciate it. Don't go